Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens. Ask me almost anything. My name is Glenn Gers, and I am the power behind Writing for Screens. I come to you live every Tuesday and Thursday, if I can make it, at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone. That's when I come here live, but the real goodies, the real stuff you can find that's helpful to screenwriters, the lessons, are on my channel page all the time, 24/7, for free. The first 3 playlists, I got a little screenshot of those here. The first 3 playlists are Screenwriting Essentials, Screenwriting Tools, Skills, Craft, and The Process, Being a Writer. These are the 3 playlists that combined right now have about 30 10-minute videos on them. I'm hoping to get that up to around 50 by the end of this year. And each one of them is a lesson. What I have learned in a 25-year career writing for TV and movies, I had to teach myself. And so what I did was, on my way out of the business, I thought, I'm going to try and explain this stuff to people so they don't have to figure it out for themselves. I tried to take on a topic in each video. The videos are short, they are dense, they are concise, they are full of very, very helpful, I think, ideas, tools, tricks, things to do. Not a big system, just try this, here's a thought. The title and the thumbnail tells you what it's about. Dramatic action, flashbacks, genre, thinking in scenes, whatever it is, it'll be right there, big, colorful letters so that you can sort through it and say, hey, I think today I will learn about character arcs. Whatever it is, it's there for you, and I urge you to take a look at that, because most of the things I'm going to say to you now, I've said in there. Okay, let's say hi, and then we'll get to some Ask Me Anythings. Hi, Morbo. Hi, Maritalitoso. Good to see you. Glad you could make it. I know it's been a tough winter for you. Hello, CG Fernandez. Tough as in tough to get here, not tough. Yes, finally getting some sun here in California. Hello, Captain Tim. Okay, so good to see all of you. Let's get right to the first question, and then I will be open for business. Anything you guys want to ask, I will go into. But right now, a lot of people have asked me versions of, how do screenwriters get paid? How does that work? A lot of them say, how much should I get paid? How much should I charge to write a script? How much, et cetera, et cetera. I don't mean, how do you make money as a how do you make a living as a writer? It's a separate question. I mean, literally, how do you get paid when you're a writer? How does that system of work and pay work? Because it's actually rather complicated and nobody really talks about it. They just say, oh, they made X for a script or whatever. And it's not actually that easy to find out the basics of how this works. So this is just a basic breakdown of the ways that screenwriters in the profession get paid. Hello, Donna. Good to see you. For the warnings right now, what I'm going to talk to you is, this is a changing field, and what I'm going to tell you is what I know, which is how writers used to get paid up until very recently. From the 1980s through to the 2010s, there was a system in place. It has changed somewhat. And so I want you to recognize that you should do your research on this. Also, I am talking only about what I know in my experience, which is the USA entertainment business. Also, this is not legal advice. When I say, oh, you can do this or you should do that or whatever, that does not mean you don't need a contract or that you can take this to some producer and say, Glenn said. None of that is true. This is just my experience and my opinions. And finally, this is not all there is to know. A lot of people know a lot more about this, and it is urgent that you start out on the internet, do some searching, get multiple sources, learn how to figure stuff out for yourself by getting different sources, find out what they know and how they know it, where they got their information, are they actually working in the business, etc., etc. That's really, really important for you to know. The other thing I really want to emphasize here when I talk about how this is done, this is just to try and demystify a little. In fact, somebody mentioned that they found my work very disillusioning. And I actually kind of think that's a good thing. I want to remove some of your illusions about how this art form works and how it works as a job, because those are different. Working in the art and working for money are never going to be the same thing. And sometimes you get to do some art for money, cool, but mostly the jobs are the jobs and the art is the art, and they are often in conflict. So the important thing you need to know is that money is a stupid reason to do creative work. And I thought a lot about this title card. I thought, is this right? I don't want to seem smug, and I also don't want to seem like I'm just trying to be funny. But it is a stupid. It's moronic. It's a bad idea. Money for the arts is a lightning strike, a lottery win. Most of the time, people who do creative work do not make money at that work, and that's okay. That is not the main goal. Unfortunately, in our world at the moment, there has become this weird idea that you make a fortune doing art. You don't make a fortune doing anything most of the time, okay? That's something that we should work on. We should work on more equity and more fairness and more less inequality. But the main thing is, especially in the arts, it is truly, as they say, you can make a killing but not a living, meaning you can make a fortune or nothing. And it's very much often a matter of chance. Did you know that the U.S. Copyright Office declared that works created by an AI are uncopyrightable? I did not, but it makes sense, and I'm glad to hear it. Well, I'm glad to hear it in one way, and I'm not in another, because it's just going to increase the frenzy of copying, stealing, and not doing original creative work. So it's a good move that's going to have a bad effect, as so many good moves do. So let's just talk, first of all, about screenwriters and pay. Screenwriters do famously get paid more than most other kinds of writers. Now and then you'll get someone who does a Broadway hit or a bestseller book, and they will get paid a lot of money. But most of the time, writers, they don't make a lot of money. But it's important that you recognize it is not the medium of screenwriting that pays more. Script form itself does not pay better, okay? What pays better is doing a script for a Hollywood studio, okay, in America. In the rest of the world, whatever your equivalent is of a Hollywood studio is what I'm talking about. But there is a tiny slice of the business which pays well, just like there's a tiny slice of athletics that pays well, a tiny slice of tech work that pays well. And that does not mean that the work itself is always well paid. Only when you get into that very competitive, high-stakes game does it pay, okay? Other than that, most of the time, people are scrambling around and working for nothing. So, I remember when I started, actually, I started writing script. I had a question for myself out of college. Am I going to focus on novels or plays or scripts, screenplays? Because I was interested in all of those. And what I thought was, at the time, well, scripts, screenplays pay more than the other things often put together. So why don't I do the one that can pay for me to do all the things I want to do? That turned out to be sort of true and sort of not. It did pay. I did get very, very lucky after, let's point out, 20 years of hard work to get there. But I did get, I am one of the lucky few who did make a good living at screenwriting. I did not actually get to do a lot of the other things I wanted to do because screenwriting took up so much of my time and effort. The most important thing I want to emphasize about Hollywood work, about studio work, about the big time is, at least here in America, it is unionized. The reason that it is well paid is because there are unions which are forcing the companies to pay well. If the companies were not forced to pay well, I guarantee you they would not be giving a decent slice of the pie to anybody. So the important thing to know about this is that the big pay comes when you are working in the unionized part of the entertainment business. That's been decades of fights to make sure that that is true. I got to say, just bless my union, and I have had lots of problems with the union, and it can be frustrating. Not lots of problems, a couple. But but the main thing is it's amazing. It is a truly incredible thing, and I do need to just, when I get a chance, speak out on behalf of the concept of labor unions, because for all of their problems, which are many, they certainly help with this inequality thing. So the danger here is the unionization is changing. Okay, the companies that are taking over and the forms of distribution that are taking over, I've talked about this other times, we're getting into a new form of distribution, and therefore streaming, often these companies are not unionized. They may have signed a deal to do work with unions in Hollywood, but overall, tech has not had a union movement, and the new services and the new streaming deals are different. And in fact, because of that, it is very possible that another Writers Guild strike is looming. There is the issues about how writers get paid, which were kind of stable for the past 40 or 50 years, are now extremely unstable because new forms of distribution are coming along, and the companies are saying, well, that doesn't count. This also happened in the past with home video, with DVDs and VHS. There were strikes then. Anyway, the point is, whatever you're thinking about how you get paid, just recognize it is currently changing. So most of the time, you do not make money by selling a script. You do not make a thing, create it, and then bring it to somebody and sell it. It is not a pot. It is not a painting. It is a script, and most of the time you make your money through performing services for the company that has hired you. Most people making a living at screenwriting of any kind are on the staffs of series, which means they are employees. They are getting paid to do work for hire. In other words, they don't own what they are doing, and they are employees. That is how writers make a living in the screen business. It is not the artistic vision of, I will make a thing, people will value it, and they will pay me for it, and then I get to do what I want. That is not how most screenwriting works, almost not. Most of the time you are signing on, and I'm going to talk about the different types of work you can do. Briefly stop to say, hi, Thumper. And Donna's not writing for money. Yay. And yes, do you think I need an agent? Yes, you will need an agent. It is almost impossible to sell within the industry without an agent. I think I talked about that in an AMA. I'll check, and if I did, I will put it in the description, a link to that later. After this episode, check there for a link. But the short answer is yes. In order to work in the industry, you need a lawyer and an agent. Because the companies will not negotiate with you personally. They need a professional who knows what they're doing. And agenting is a profession. You actually need to understand contracts. And so the answer is, sometimes in a rare circumstance, if you are a novice and somebody finds your script somehow, like they're best friend gave a copy of the script and they got it and they said, oh my gosh, I'm hiring this person directly into the industry, they will then introduce you to agents. Or you will be able to get introduced to agents because there is a deal pending. I have talked about that in a video called How to Get an Agent. It's here. How to Get an Agent. Check that out. It is not how you get paid. It's another thing that happens after. So let's get back to pay. The other thing you should remember is about this idea that you're selling your script. You are almost never selling your script. Selling a script is part of the deal, but they are also hiring you to rework it because they never just make it. They never, ever just buy a script and make it. So usually a lot of the money comes in stages as you rewrite it to their satisfaction. The Hollywood writer was always, except in the very, very beginning, a factory employee. They punched a time clock like everyone else. Literally would come in, they would punch a time clock, go to their cubicle, and famously, Sam Goldman would walk down the hall between the cubicles, and if people weren't typing, he would say, why aren't they working? Anyway, there was a very brief era at the end of the studio system when script sales went spec, went freelance, in which people were selling their scripts to whoever would buy them. And that is where all of everything you know about screenwriting comes from that era. And that's a very short era. It only started in the 1980s. And it's basically over. So you're talking about 30 years in which everything that you are currently being told about how the business works came from a unique period of the business from the 80s to now, and that is over. So therefore, this concept of I'm going to write a script and everyone's going to bid on it and I'm going to make a lot of money, that is not mostly how the work gets done. Unfortunately, all of screenwriting theory that you now hear is like how to write a script came from that era. So it's all based in the movies that were hits in that era, not the rest of film history or the rest of the culture, which is huge and much bigger than that. But the main thing is this concept of selling spec scripts and being this freelance writer and having power are a delusion created during a brief period when agents had a lot of power. And that's how that worked. The other thing I want to explain, or have to point out, is I am not going to go into the legal details or financial details of these concepts. I'm just trying to give you the basic concepts of how writers get paid in screenwriting. There are many, many interviews and articles by experts on the internet. Go look for them once you've heard what I have to say so that you can say, I want to know more about how that works. Do some searching, some Googling perhaps. Get multiple sources. Make sure that you have checked where they got their information from. Really important. People lie on the internet all the time. Don't believe anyone without doing some serious research on your own. And I don't mean just reading more of the same crap and copy-pasted stuff. I mean actually learning how to find facts on the internet, including what I'm saying. I am trying my best to be honest, but I clearly can get things wrong, and it's very important that you check whatever I am saying. Okay. The first thing we're talking about is the most writers, most of the time, are actually getting a salary. Okay, let's type these things out. Salary. Boom. So, most screenwriters, most of the time, get paid a salary. In other words, you get a contract with a corporation, negotiated by your agent, which is for a set amount of time, broken into usually weeks, for a season or a part of a show or a job, in which you will get paid usually by the week, sometimes twice every 2 weeks, but basically your salary will be, you are going to work on this show for 12 weeks. And during those 12 weeks, you will get a paycheck every week, and this total will be, and so therefore this is what you'll make every week. They take out benefits, there's union dues, there's all sorts of things like that, but you are getting a salary. You are an employee of the company, and anything you do on that job, they own. You have absolutely no rights to anything that you think of in that script. That's theirs. They can do what they want with it, and they can tell you what to do. There also are, when you're working for shows, episode fees. In other words, in addition to your weekly salary, if you get credit on an episode, which does not mean you're the only writer on that episode, but they sort it out. They say, okay, we're going to give everybody 1 episode, or everybody 2 episodes, or we'll see if we give you an episode. It depends. Then you will get a set fee. The Writers Guild established this fee. It can be that fee or larger if the show can manage it. But you get a set fee for having written that episode in addition to your salary. That's the way that writers on shows get paid. Now, there are mostly series jobs on shows. If you are writing a feature for streaming or theatrical, you may actually write an original script and sell it. If you do that, let's talk about this. Okay, what we're going to be talking about here for the sale of a script is an option and steps. So let's talk about what those are. Okay, first of all, I just want to say, hi, Doug. And you are entirely welcome, Donna. And hi, Nathan. Okay, so let's go back to script sale, option and steps. Here's the deal. Suppose you do write an original script and you own the rights to it, it's all yours, and you show it to someone and they say, I want to buy this. They will almost never actually just give you a check and say, now we own this. What they will do is they will write a check they will get a contract for an option. An option is basically they hold the script, no one else can work on it or claim rights to it for a period of time, usually 18 months or more. Sometimes a year, sometimes 6 months, but mostly a year, 12 to 18 months, at least in Hollywood, at least now. So the deal is they'll say, okay, from now until 18 months from now, we are the producer of record of this script. We have the rights. During that time, we are going to find out or decide if we want to go further. We will pay you X amount of dollars, $1,000, $20,000, whatever gets negotiated for the option of the script for the holding of the property during that time. That's all they're getting for that. At the end of that time, if they decide they do not want to go further with it, they have to give you back the rights to the script and you keep the money. So they're essentially renting the script for a while. Now, if you do any writing for that script, those are the steps. For instance, if they say, we like this, we want to option it and then have you do some rewrites, those are steps. You will do a first rewrite, a second rewrite, a polish, etc., etc. There used to be 3 steps: first draft, rewrite, polish. However, that has changed. Now there's sometimes 1 step, sometimes, I've had cases where somebody's optioned it but not had me do any work because they wanted to see if they could set up the other elements, directors, actors, and then if so, they would put more money into it. So what happens is you can option a script multiple times. I have done this. In the option agreement, in that contract, it's a short contract, but it is a legal contract for the option. The option legally will say, we are giving you $1,000 to hold this script for 12 months. During that time, if we decide we want to produce it and we want to, then the sale price will be set here as $100,000. So you're getting $1,000 now, and they're saying, if we buy it, we promise we will pay $100,000. Now, sometimes they'll say, we're going to option it, and the sale price is negotiable. We'll figure it out then, depending on what kind of money we can raise. But the important thing to remember about this is that if the contract states, we will buy it for X amount of dollars, and they decide they want to buy it, you can't stop them. Once that option has gone into effect, they can buy it if they give you the money. Now, they're giving you money, that's what you wanted, but sometimes during the course of that time, what if somebody else came along and said, oh, we want to do it and you like them better? No good. The people who pay the money to fulfill that option contract have the right to own that. So it's just something to consider when you option something. However, the main thing that happens is you option it. Sometimes you do some steps. Well, the rewrite steps are another contract. It's all freaking contracts. They give you a contract and they say, we are going to hire you to do a rewrite of this script. You will have 8 weeks to do it in. We will pay you $10,000 to do that. At the end of the $10,000, you have to hand us the rewrite with all the notes that we agreed upon. That's a step in the contract. Sometimes they'll say you're going to do that twice or 3 times, whatever it is. And they'll say these are the prices for those steps. In other words, we are optioning this script for $1,000. We will pay you $5,000 to do a rewrite, $2,000 to do a smaller rewrite, and then we'll decide if we like it. That's it. The work you do under those steps, okay, is not yours. In other words, if you have your script and you are writing new ideas that they're saying, cut that character out, or we need to add a character who explains this, that new work is not your property. Even if they give you back your script, anything you did while you were being paid is property of the people who paid you. That's in the contract. So therefore, things can get complicated when you do rewrites on things and then get it back, because you have to go back to the original script. Often you love that because they've messed up your script. But I do want to point out, work done for money as a screenwriter does not belong to you. It belongs to the person who paid the money, and they can do whatever they want, including put it on a shelf and hide it from the rest of the world forever, or have someone else rewrite every word of it. They have that right. That is what the money's for, to quote Don Draper in Mad Men. Okay, let me just quickly go through some comments. Some options go for no money. That is true. I will talk about that in a bit. How do you avoid getting screwed over by agents, etc.? Honestly, partly I answered this in another AMA about avoiding scams, but the real answer is the same way you avoid getting screwed over by anyone. First of all, be informed. Learn about how these deals work. Learn about the background and references of the people you are working with. See if you can find someone to call around and say, hey, find out if you've worked with people. When I was working with a distributor, I called other people who had worked with them, and I said, I'd made an indie film and I wanted to know whether this distributor was good. And I called other people and I said, hey, are they okay? Do you feel well treated by them? The main way you avoid getting screwed over is by not doing anything that you cannot recover from. For instance, if you decide to sell your script and they are going to mess it up, that's screwed over. That's part of the business. You just have to accept that script gets ruined because you took the money. That's how it goes. The screwed over is such a giant world of activity that we would have to talk about the different ways. But the main answer is inform yourself. There are lots of people doing lots of podcasts and interviews and things like that, where it's Script Magazine, Screenwriting, there's a lot of magazines, online magazines that have articles where people talk about this. They'll have different opinions because it's life. Okay. Hey, Pato. No, they do not. And I am talking about that. Definitely. So what we were just talking about was if you have a feature-length individual script and you are doing a sale of it or rewrites, that is a certain kind of work. That's called features, okay, theatrical or streaming. TV work is always an employment situation. If you create a show, you will have a whole set of contracts and deals in which you are essentially two people. One, the producer of the show, and the other is the writer of that pilot and the creator of that show. There are contracts for both of those jobs. You get paid separately for those two jobs, having created a show. Nobody creates a show first time. I mean, like a first-time writer almost never can be hired as a creator because the responsibilities are way too enormous for an inexperienced person. They will team you up with someone who has actually done it. Okay. Hang on, Thomas. I will get to that. Yeah, it's a good question. Hang on. Let me get to that. Let me just finish these steps so that I can be sure that I've explained everything. So we're talking about salary. All right, we talked about salary, and we've talked about the sale of a script, which has options and steps. Now, there is another thing, which is, in the business, they are called residuals. Okay? Residuals is another way, and you often can make quite a bit of money from residuals if you have written a TV show, because a residual is a payment that you get when the show goes on the air. In other words, you get a payment for writing the script and having it made, And then when the show goes on the air, every time it gets run, they have to pay you something. It's a lot the first time, and then it gets less and less and less. And down the line, this is true. Everybody who worked in Hollywood in the past 30 or 40 years has stories about this. You will get 9-cent checks. You will get checks for 3 cents. Usually it's more. Usually it's like $2.14 or something. But the residuals do come down. If you wrote an episode of a half-hour sitcom, which I have done, I wasn't on the staff, but I wrote an episode. And then when that episode goes on the 6,000th rerun, they'll send you $2.14. It's kind of funny, but the truth is those initial payments are often a lot of money. And if you write a lot of episodes, as many TV writers have, those residuals really, really build up. And every time that show goes on, gets a new streaming deal or something, they send you another check. So residuals are no small matter. Now, the thing that you need to know about residuals is that they come from credit, okay? You get the residual if you are the person who has the credit on that episode. That credit is determined by the showrunners and the company, and the deal you have with the writers. The Writers Guild determines credits for features. So when you're on a show, they will, like I said, say, okay, we're going to divide up. We're doing 15 episodes. That means each one of you gets 1 episode credit, which means you will get the residuals for that episode. Even if it turns out that you get completely rewritten, you still get the credit on the screen, and therefore you get the residual check. In truth, almost every episode of television is rewritten by many people. It depends, but almost always. And the credit is assigned by the people running the company in order to distribute the wealth. Now, some of them, famously, certain showrunners say, I want to have my name on every episode because I'm doing all the rewrites. So therefore, they force you to split the credit with them, which also means you split the residuals. This is a shitty thing to do when you are the showrunner and you are already getting all that producer money. But it does happen. Anyway, credit for features is determined by the Writers Guild of America, the union, which means that even usually, honestly, on many scripts, there are multiple writers. They will buy a script from one person, then hire a different person to rewrite it, then hire a different person to rewrite that. Eventually, all those different scripts get sent to the Writers Guild, and a team of 3 volunteer writers will read them all, and they have a very, very distinct set of rules for who gets credit. That credit determines who gets the residuals. That's how that works. There is such a thing as royalties. In screenwriting, royalties do not exist. Royalties are for books and plays because the writers of books and plays do not give away the copyright of their work. So what they do is they sign a contract so that someone will get the rights to do a certain production or to print a certain number of copies or print for a certain number of amount of time. The point is that it's essentially the equivalent of the residuals deal. A contract will be made for that. Royalties do not happen in American screenwriting. They do, however, happen in foreign screenwriting. So weirdly, Americans get foreign royalties if their American movie or show is shown in Europe. Okay, so let me just briefly take a set about credit. I'm clear that you don't know what you. But how about credit? Okay, credit is determined contractually in TV. Before you start, they say, you're going to get this one, they're going to get this one. Sometimes they say, everybody gets 1 episode. We have 3 or 4 later. We will assign those as we go. But the main thing about TV is that credit is assigned often in advance. Once again, like I said, I have not done that much TV work, and I have not done TV work recently, so this may be, there's better sources for that. But I do know that credit is assigned basically by the company as a way to distribute that bounty among the staff. credit for features is determined by the Writers Guild of America, the union. Okay. And then let's just quickly check on Gale. So after the edits, rewrites, you get back the original script and you can sell the original elsewhere. Yes. Then how to avoid rewrites that are too close to the rewrites? That is a wonderful question, Gail. The answer is it depends. Sometimes what happens is they do a thing called turnaround. Turnaround is when they say they option a script, and then they pay for some rewrites. Then they decide they don't want to do it. They see if any other company wants it, because different companies have different needs. So what happens is they will say, we will sell you the whole package. You can have the rewrites for the price that we paid for them or more. And so the whole package gets moved over to another company in the Hollywood business. If, as happened to me sometimes, like what happened with me with my very first script was it got optioned. I did a draft. They then immediately fired me. They hired other people to do rewrites, and then they gave it back to me. I never saw those rewrites. I have no idea what's in them. No one knows what's in them. So therefore, we simply went back to the version that they originally optioned. I have no idea what's in those other rewrites. So it depends on the situation. It depends on how much the people who are producing it are going with the package, or whether they're just turning it back to you and saying, we wash our hands of this, it's yours. That's the answer is it can get very complicated and very ugly. And that is the business. The thing you have to recognize when you become a Hollywood screenwriter, professional screenwriter in that part of the industry, is your material is something that gets thrown into the sausage machinery and never really comes back whole. Yes, you can get your script back, and that does happen quite often. And as long as you are willing to just pretend that the rest of the rewrites never happened, you're good to go. Send it to someone else. Also, you may have learned things or thought of things in those rewrites. Sometimes you can kind of do your own rewrite after the option's done and do a version that maybe is improved, because sometimes these rewrites make it better. It's a tricky area. What I would say is, if you are in that position, you have an agent. And if you have an agent and a lawyer, which you will if you are in that position, ask them. Okay, now, so that's all Hollywood. Okay, that is all the upper crust of pay. That is all the union deal. The most important thing you need to know is that all of these union regulations are published. They are negotiated with the studios in hard-fought negotiations, and then they publish a thing called the MBA. MBA stands for, I don't know, whatever it is. I forget what it's called, but basically it's like, these are the rules of working with our union. And you can see that book of rules on the Writers Guild website at any time. That is available. You can just go there, wga.org. Let me see if I can find that. Now, what the heck, I'll just write it. wga.org. Boom. So for more information about this Hollywood stuff, go to wga.org. They have information available to the general public about how Hollywood works for writers, what the rules are, what you have to do to get into the union, what you have to do to stay in the union, and what a union deal is, which means that from then on, you're only allowed to work with people who will sign a union contract and agree to take care of you the way you should be taken care of, which means paying for your pension and health and working with minimums. I think it's minimum basic agreement, MBA. Anyway, the point is that they'll say you cannot pay a writer less than X amount for a treatment or for a rewrite or for a polish, etc., etc. Lots and lots of rules. Okay, but most people do not work for the Writers Guild. Most writers. Okay, there are, I think 12,000 writers in the Writers Guild Union in America, of which only a percentage, I think it's like 60%, 70%, I don't know, are actually working at any given time. So a lot of the time you will be dealing with non-union producers, companies, etc. That is indie film. Now, there are, quote, indie films that are done by Fox Searchlight, etc., etc. We're not talking about that. We're talking about companies that do not do union deals and work with people, and they negotiate the deals by themselves, one-on-one, okay? Much of your first steps will be there. And that's where it gets, in some ways, complicated, because the pay is whatever they agree on. Okay? It is whatever the producer and the writer agree on, and every production is different. So you have to recognize that you are a half of that deal. It is very important for you to remember that you are half of the deal. You do not have to do whatever they say. No matter how much you think you want their job, if they are mistreating you, you do not want that job. It is better to move on. Okay? You do not need them that much. If you are good enough to matter to them, then you will be good enough to matter to someone else, and you don't need to be abused. Okay? This is very important because a lot of business people make it a principle to try to rip off their partners. Producers routinely will say, we're putting up our money, so you shouldn't have to, you should just be grateful that we're doing that and not take any of the money. We'll put it towards the film stock or whatever. There's no more film stock, but you know what I'm saying. The disc space. That is not true. Okay. Every single production has its own deal, and you have to learn about that, which is why I beg you to become informed about how production works. Takes years, takes time. Start learning now. The main thing is you should never pay anyone to write for their production. Okay? There is never a time when a writer should pay the producer. Never. Frankly, you should never have to pay an agent. The agent should take a percentage of what you're doing. But the main thing is, if someone is doing a production and they are asking you to pay anything, walk away. Do not do that. No one is doing you a favor or an honor if you are providing them with a script. Okay? They are not helping you more than you are helping them. It is a joint effort, and you need to be treated respectfully in that. Now, that said, it is not unreasonable to work for nothing if everyone involved is working for nothing. There are many DIY projects that work that way, and that is a completely legitimate thing to do as long as it is being properly, fairly done. If everyone's going to get together and say, we're not going to take any money for this, and then whatever money comes in, we will split, that's fair. That is an okay thing to do. However, if the producer or the company is getting paid and they're saying to everyone who's working for it, you guys should just not be paid because we're putting our money up, and so therefore, you guys shouldn't be paid until we get paid back, that's not okay. Okay? They should not be asking anyone to work for free, for promises, or for experience. Okay? Those are not things that you should work for free for unless everyone is. If everyone involved is doing the same, if they are not getting any income, cool, that's a deal. Sometimes you'll get a producer who will say, we're going to do this whole production and get paid for it, but you guys don't get paid. I would not do that if I were you. A lot of this depends on the budget, on the deals that they have already figured out. Very often, you make a film not knowing if you're ever going to get any money for it. That's the way that art works. And if you are doing that, it is not unreasonable for everyone to contribute equally for free. However, it is very important to have a written contract that everyone agrees on about what you do if money comes in. Now, there are lots and lots of indie DIY film sites, film lawyers, etc., on the internet. Please go look. I am not a legal expert. This is not legal advice. What I am saying is you should get legal advice. You should understand that there should be a contract, even if it's a bunch of friends and you're all making a movie together. It makes sense to write down in a nice basic legal form that you can probably get for free now on the internet, which says basically we're starting a business together. The purpose of the business is to make this movie. If money comes in, first it goes to pay back whatever it costs to make it. And then after that, whatever money gets split, so-and-so gets this much, so-and-so gets that much, so-and-so. Those don't even have to be equal. Whatever you guys agree upon is fine. But it should be written down, because on the off chance that things go well, you'd be surprised how many people remember things differently. It is very important to write it down. If possible, have an entertainment lawyer look at it. If not, like I said, go on there's lots of indie DIY filmmaking information about this. Go to multiple sources, figure out what you can, do the best you can. Do take that seriously. Also, do not use as your lawyer the same lawyer who is hired, who's representing the company you are working for. That's not okay, because that is a conflict of interest. They are negotiating on both sides and you can get cheated. Okay. The other thing to remember is flat fees. This whole residuals thing makes a big difference. Sometimes somebody will sell something and then later, the amount that it comes in for much later is bigger than the original fee. It's really important to consider that stuff, the participation, they call it, in later income. If you just do a flat fee, I'm getting paid $100 to work on this movie, and if it makes $1 billion, oh well. A lot of streaming deals now are like that. I do not know how streaming deals are working out, so I would say just do some research on it. But it is one of the tricky things that is changing in the business right now, is that this residuals contract concept has changed. And a lot of the streaming services are saying, we're just paying you a flat fee, and then we can show it and do whatever we want with it. Partly that makes sense because they're not running it like a network used to. It's there, and sometimes people click on it and sometimes people don't. I don't know the details of that. I know those details are in flux. Okay. The main thing I would say about all of this is everything that you think about creating something and selling it and getting money for it directly is not true in the world of screenwriting. It's much more complicated than that. You should learn about that. You don't have to overthink it. You don't have to worry too much about it. You're mainly not going to make any money at this. Don't worry about it. But if you are doing DIY stuff, learn about production. Understand how production financing, even DIY free, we're all working for nothing, has a deal in place. Okay. Let me go. Let's see what's going on here. What do you need to join the Writers Guild? I will tell you. They will tell you. The Writers Guild has a very clear, how do I join the Writers Guild tab on their website, where they say you have to do this many jobs for this many people and this much money, and I don't know. So check that out. Yes, I think that with musicians, sometimes you get the same deal. As far as everybody works for nothing and we will split the gate, etc., etc. Hi, Kill Team Hungry. I have made ChatGPT AI write me a few fan fiction scripts after I gave it some guidelines. What is your passing the handy? I hate that. I did a video on this already. Optimize. It's look in the description after this is over, 10 minutes over. It's called I Have Thoughts. And it's optimizing, and I can't remember the name. Anyway, the point is it'll be there. My main thought is anything that you give over to another entity, human or otherwise, is then you're not writing. If you're a showrunner and you say, write me the first draft of this script, and then somebody writes the first draft, does the heavy lifting, and then you rewrite it, that's fine. First of all, you're paying them. Second of all, you hopefully are working with them creatively. But last of all, no matter what, you didn't write it. Don't say you wrote it. I also just don't understand like I've said this a lot. I don't understand the concept of not doing creative work yourself. I don't understand why. If it's that you don't, like you feel like that your scripts, like why are you writing the scripts if you don't want to write them? That's my question. Like what value does the script have that it could exist when you don't write it? Like why does it exist? The point of the script is that you've thought of something, or you feel something, or you have some ideas and you want to put them out. But if you're just saying, I need scripts because you need something to shoot, hire a writer. If you need something to publicize your work, hire a publicist. Sure, do that if you want. I don't know what to say. All I know is that I personally cannot see any advantage to having another entity, human or computer, do the work for you, unless, like, it's part of the concept of your work. Like Andy Warhol had other people do his paintings for him. Yeah, that was kind of a anti-establishment, let's fuck with the art system move. I know that like Renaissance painters often would have like their apprentices do some of the work. Yeah, maybe. But overall, my main answer is there is no creative advantage to having some machine create for you, even if they do a great job. What if they write better than you? How is that good for you? I just don't get it. I mean, if they write worse than you, then why are you doing it? And if they write better than you, why are you doing it? Yes, it could be a tool, just like, sure, you could use a flip book to choose colors, but I don't entirely understand why. Because the acts of choosing, the act of creating, the act of inventing, those acts are the thing. That's all there is to creative work, is the choices and the skills used to do those choices. If you turn that over to a computer, you may be doing good business, but you're doing terrible art, even if it's pretty. Hi, Will. What's the best strategy when writing a query letter to a celebrity? Pitching a logline. What has worked for you in getting them to nothing? Nothing will work for you. That is literally, you are more likely to get struck by lightning than to have a celebrity read your stuff, your pitch, or take it. It is possible, of course. I'm not going to say that. It is also possible to get hit by lightning. It is possible to win the lottery. But the idea, first of all, celebrities in general are not the first line of defense. In other words, if you were to somehow magically get direct contact with a celebrity, that would be weird. But if you did, if a friend of a friend of a friend who has their email, and you can send them a pitch email, and they read it. Suppose they said, oh my God, this is the greatest idea I've ever heard. First of all, what idea is that great? Seriously, there's no such thing as that great an idea. But even if there was that great an idea, then they would say, tell my agent. And the agent is going to be pissed at you for going around them. It's not impossible, but the answer is, as far as strategy, write there are millions of articles and videos where people talk about query letters and how to do it. I'm not the best person. I would say be short. Do not talk about yourself. Talk about the story. Figure out what it is about the story that is so riveting and try and tell that in one paragraph. Very few steps. That's it. That's all I know. I do think that if you're pitching anything to anyone, the main thing you want to get is, who is it about? It's this stuff. Hold on. Here. Okay. This is really it. Who is it about? What are they trying to do? Why is that hard? The idea is that you're trying to get an idea of what world it's set in. Is it, downtown Detroit or the fields of Iowa or the ocean? Where does it take place? When does it take place? Who are the main characters? And what is it that they want or are trying to accomplish? And what is the thing that makes that interesting? Because even I want to steal gold from the Fort Knox is going to, essentially then it's like, well, what about it? Why are we interested in that? Lots of people want lots of things, but there's always something about your story, like they want to steal gold and there's an atomic bomb, and they found a secret treasure map that goes under it. There'll be something about the story that's uniquely yours, and hopefully you can try and say that. Is that making sense? How important is a manager? Look at my how to get an agent video. And a manager is nice. Managers, if you can find one, it's often easier to find a manager than an agent. That's cool. It's not that it's not that different from finding an agent or how important is if they will work hard for you. That's important. If they don't work hard for you, it doesn't matter if they're the most important manager and agent in the world. If they're busy with other clients and they're not doing anything for you, I don't know that that's great. So the answer is they're important if they understand you, care about what you're doing, agree with you about what you want to accomplish, and are working hard for you. That's good. Okay. Let me go back very briefly to Thomas's. Hi, Thomas. Your story. In your 25 years of screenwriting, when were you able to make a living? Okay. Yes. It was both mindset and chance and payoff from the long run. That's exactly what it was. I started trying to be a professional writer when I was still in high school. I did not do well at that, nor in college. I dropped out of college, as I've said in some of my videos, and then I went back to college because it was harder than I thought, and college was safe. After college, I then spent another 12 years. So it was a 20-year period when I was trying to make a living. In the course of that, I got an agent. I got an agent quite soon after college, actually. It's a weird time. I was in a weird place. I got lucky, but also I am gifted and someone recognized that, so that was cool. But the main thing about that is, in my particular case, I was writing scripts. I had an agent after the first script about 2 years in. Then there was another 10 years when that agent, I was writing more scripts. The agent was submitting the scripts. I was getting people saying, this is a really good script, but we're not paying for it. I got a brief $5,000 option from a big producer, which let me take a summer off from temp work, and I wrote more scripts. Still another 5 years before and the first script, the one from 12 years before, finally got a big option. And I got to rewrite it, and that broke me in. I could finally stop working as an office temp. So the answer is, what happened was, and I've told this I think before in Film Courage, an independent producer took on that script and they said, I think I can get this made. And they were working for years, 5 or 6 years, with the script that was already 5 or 6 years old. I had written many scripts since then. But this producer worked with that script. They eventually had essentially given up. They had to quit that and take a job because they couldn't afford to be an independent producer anymore. And they, Mae Wethridge was her name. She now directs audiobooks. She's really great. She was working for a company and wasn't supposed to do this, but she gave my script to a celebrity who loved it. And the company couldn't confess to the celebrity that they didn't own that script, so they had to hastily option it. And that gave me a year's worth of money. And with that money, I wrote a new script, and that gave me my my biggest breaks. So the answer is, it's an enormously long story. It's 20 years. Of that 12 years with, 10 years of professional representation, yeah, all I can say is there was a turning point. The turning point was when that 12-year-old script lucked into a circumstance, luck being a crucial word, that various people liked it enough to pass it around, and it had been passed around and liked by other celebrities and other producers and other companies for 10 years. It was a very popular script in the industry. However, in fact, it was on the first blacklist. I was on the runner-ups or something of the very first blacklist. And it still just never got made. Still hasn't been made. Never will be. What are you going to do? Okay, very briefly. Hope you're doing well. Does the leading character need to be sympathetic in order to be well received? I loved Ralph. No. The short answer is no. The short answer is, what do you mean sympathetic? That's really the key thing. Like, some people will there's a healthy debate on whether the lead character of American Psycho is sympathetic. Is the lead character in Taxi Driver sympathetic? The answer is, we can be engaged with a story without admiring a person or wanting to be like them or even wanting them to succeed. We can be engaged in a story because we are afraid that the main character will succeed, and we spend all our time hoping that they don't. The show Succession, there is a fair argument to be made that there is not a single sympathetic character in Succession. There's also an argument to be made that every one of them, in their awfulness, has a sympathetic moment or side. So the answer is, I believe that the reason you care about a character is because you understand what they are trying to do, what they want. And then you engage with that. That's my personal feeling. It's also possible to have a story where where there are no absolute rules. Does that make sense, Neil? No absolute rules. We can often find things to like about characters who are wrong. Thank you. Yeah. And I don't mean I don't mean to be harsh on AI. I don't see the point of AI for creative writing. And I deeply fear, I've talked about this elsewhere, use of AI to judge scripts, because I believe that is in the works, that is going to happen, and that is something we should all be very afraid of, is somebody saying, I'm going to feed scripts into an AI that is going to judge whether it's good or not based on parameters. That's awful. It is a step worse than what's already happening, which is that people have that AI in their head of those parameters, but at least they're people. So anyway, okay. Do you think it is easier nowadays to get your script sold than it was when you started? That is a good and difficult question. I don't know. In some ways it's easier because there are, in many ways, more outlets. Also sold, once again, do you mean sold into Hollywood? There is more work. However, there are also more people doing it. When I started, there weren't that many people. I know it sounds crazy, but in the 1980s, there still were not that many people. Now, it is astonishing how many people are writing scripts. Scripts, by the way, are a terrible writing form. Please, if you can write anything else, write something else. Scripts are very unsatisfying. And as I've tried to explain here, the business end of scripts make it more unsatisfying, even beyond the unsatisfying creativity. So therefore, all I would say is there are more options for things to do with the script now. Yes, you can make your own script more easily. You can get an indie production done more easily. However, it is harder to get your indie film noticed or money for it. Hope that that makes sense, Castor. The answer is it is, and as far as Hollywood itself, I would not say it's easier or harder, but I would say it is different, but it's different every 5 years. Now it's different every year. There's constantly a different blend because, truthfully, very much when I was starting out, you were writing I was writing feature scripts. I was writing a script, trying to sell it. It was much more of that. Now you are trying to get on a staff, trying to write a pilot and get it made. Those are very different. There is more work being done, though. That I will say. Is it difficult to get an agent if you have never written anything before? If you have never written anything before, you shouldn't have an agent. Agents, here, let me remind you of this one. I did a script, how to get an agent. Watch that. Basically, agents are about money. There is no money for somebody who's never written before. The odds of you writing a script and this first script being something that you can do if you have not been in the business, like sometimes you get an actor who's done 50 movies and then they write a script and it's pretty workable. But truthfully, if you have never written anything before, expect to have to write a lot of things over a lot of time and take steps. It took me 20 years. And I don't mean that like, it took me 20 years. You should do 20 years. If you get lucky, God bless you, do it. But realistically, it is hard to learn these things and it takes time. The 10,000 hours line is not incorrect. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a book called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Outliers talks about success and the meaning of it, and he talks about the 10,000 hours. It takes about 10,000 hours. That's a lot of years working every day, a few hours a day, to become a master of an art. Sympathetic characters is a very hard thing to define. Hello, Wolf. Good to see you. Sympathetic, a different thing people find. Like I personally find like aggression not particularly sympathetic. A lot of people think, the tough guy character is really aggressive. That's the hero. Not my thing. Cool. Yeah, I would urge you to look at some of my other videos. I've done a bunch of things on that. Didn't expect me to say that. Well, there you go. Cool. I hope that this has been helpful. I hope it's been somewhat disillusioning in a healthy way, which is to get rid of illusions, because if you get rid of your illusions, you can work on your reality. The reality is exciting. Creative reality is cool. The illusions that people have about what creative work is like actually keep you from being creative and keep you from doing creative work in new and ways that are open to you, because you're so busy with this illusion that you're going to, make Reservoir Dogs as your first movie, which is not impossible. But let's remember, that wasn't his first script. Anyway, once again, try to use this as the starting point for you to explore information about the business. I have talked a lot about that on my channel. Seriously, look at these 3 playlists. I've got some on agents. There's also a couple in a 4th playlist called about the business. That's where the agent one is. That's where some stuff about career stuff. But especially like right in here. Let's see if I can blow this up. Can I do that? Right here. Okay, see this one? 4 things you need to know. This is really a good one. 4 things you need to know. Hold on. I think I got this here. Yeah. This video. Please watch it. Please. That it's really, really a good start. Okay? So, great to see all of you all. Next episode, Thursday. Don't know what I'm doing. Hope it'll be great. I think it will. Show up and we'll find out. Go write something.